Our transatlantic cruise took us to a number of ports off the coast of Portugal, Spain, and Brazil. So if those are on your itinerary, then watch this video and learn about some of those ports that you might visit.
Hi, I'm Migs.
And I'm Nate.
And we did a transatlantic cruise from Portugal, Lisbon specifically, all the way to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. It was 18 nights and we stopped in many different ports. The first one, it's kind of weird to call it a port, it was in Lisbon and it didn't really feel like a port. You're just basically in the Alfama neighborhood of Lisbon.
Yeah, that was convenient. We stayed a few days ahead of time before the trip and we chose to stay in Alfama, which is the historic district. And from there, it was a pretty easy walk to the port to get to our departure. So that was actually nice.
We could actually see our ship, like the top of the cruise ship, from the bedroom in the Airbnb.
Our first port that we went to once we actually got underway was visiting the city of Funchal, which is on the island of Madeira and part of Portugal. This was surprising to me that it was not a beachy destination. I just think of if you're in an island in the middle of the ocean that you're going to be full of beaches, but that wasn't always the case at all of these ports. They all had their own identity, and Funchal was a very busy developed city and was built along sort of the hillside and cliffs, and they had a cable car that we took, which gave great views of the coast and the ship and the city. And at the top of that were some beautiful gardens and a palace that we were able to tour as well.
Yeah, I love that palace. It was really cool. There was a museum within the palace gardens that was all gemstones. There were beautiful, huge gemstones. We saw some flamingos. There was a waterfall. There was different paths that you can walk, one which was more in the woods. We saw fish, like little houses, just a lot to see.
The actual house on these grounds were closed for renovation, so we didn't get to tour the house itself.
The other part of Funchal that we really liked was the Rua de Santa Maria, the street that was just full of awesomely painted doors, like all these different businesses, residences, had just works of art just as part of their doors.
Yeah, that was an awesome street. They had a lot of restaurants and stuff that you could eat outside as well.
This port for us had a really good vibe. We felt very safe walking around. There was lots to do, lots of restaurants you could go, eat, drink, things, go to museums, go to the gardens. So lots to do, and it was one of my favorite ports. The second port off of our cruise was Arrecife, Spain, and we did not get off the ship. I know, that was the first time and the only time that we didn't get off.
I just remember that we didn't get off the ship and I didn't feel guilty about it. I really enjoyed our time there. Everyone's cruise experience is going to be different. We were going to see a lot of the ports on the trip, but we had been traveling a lot before the cruise as well. So I know that I at least was looking forward to this as like some downtime, a little vacation, a little relaxation. And I didn't feel like I needed to see everything. Our next stop was Las Palmas Gran Canaria, which is part of Spain. This one felt less touristy, but it did have a more beachy vibe, which is what I was expecting from these island destinations. It was about 20 minutes walk from the port. They were able to go to downtown and to the beaches there. And it was a younger group of more fit, outdoorsy, running, swimming, active lifestyle kind of people. What I noticed is just walking around the town in general, like the locals, everyone just seemed very friendly and greeting each other, and dogs running around the street, and they were all smiling too. Like it was just everyone enjoyed being there.
They did have restaurants along the boardwalks, so if you wanted to do that or grab drinks or just hang out by the beach, very easy to do all of that. So overall, very beachy vibe port and easy to get to the center. I think it's a good port. Santa Cruz de Tenerife in Spain was the next port, and this one was really cool because when the ship docked, you could see all these beautiful mountains, and we did walk around the island and got to see some of the mountains. So I think that made the port a little bit more special. It didn't feel as beachy to me because of the mountains, but I think that's also why I liked it.
Yeah, it had a more traditional city feel. It had gardens and the mountains, so like beautiful landscapes, and then a nice city market that we went to that had a lot of local food products and local crafts that you could buy. But everything just looked brightly colored and very welcoming and a fun place to walk around.
After Spain or after Europe, we went to a new continent. We went to Africa. We went to Praia in Cape Verde, and this port It was not the best dock location. We had to walk through a lot of shipping containers and it was very hot and it was like a 45-minute to an hour walk. I felt bad because I was really excited to go to Bahia. I had heard some great things, but I think where we docked was just not the best place.
Yeah, I think it was the first time that the ship had docked at that particular location, so maybe they didn't know what to expect either. They did offer a shuttle to get to town, but they charged $20 for that shuttle. So we decided we would try to walk anyway, and it was a hot day. It was a little bit of a difficult walk. Getting out of the port was also kind of a hectic, chaotic atmosphere. As soon as you are leaving the guarded area of the port, there are a lot of people trying to give you rides or try to point you in one direction or another, give you tours. So it was just very overwhelming, especially when we didn't know exactly where we were trying to go. We found our way mostly by following some other people that we could see on the road or in the distance, and there was a shortcut we took at one point, but in general it was not touristy, and the best thing that I thought it offered was a nice view over the water that you could actually see the ship from, and you could see the town and the coastline.
There weren't many restaurants that you could stop in or grab a drink, or bars. Didn't really have a lot to do other than to walk around, which is fine, but there wasn't much to see necessarily.
The second stop in Cape Verde was Porto Grande, and this was more to my liking. The city was closer to walk to from the port, and the streets themselves were more walkable. It was set up kind of like city blocks rather than having just one main street with a lot of merchants set up trying to sell things. There was more interesting buildings and architectures to look at. There was more street art. So even though we mostly just walked around again to get a feel for the city, I thought it was much more enjoyable, and there were more things that we were able to see as we walked.
Yeah, and this part had the beach sort of right there. We saw a lot of people from the cruise that just, the moment they got to those beaches, they put down their towels and they were enjoying themselves. So it's really good if you are looking for the beach, right? Easy access. After Cape Verde and lots of days at sea, we made it to Brazil. The first stop being Recife. When you get to the port, there's an area that's pretty touristy, pretty close to the port, but we wanted to explore outside and go more towards the city. And that was a little bit like, I think it was close to an hour walk, and it was not very pedestrian friendly.
And you say it's not pedestrian friendly. I called it pedestrian hostile. So every country has a place that they call the Venice of that country, and this is the Venice of Brazil. So there are 3 bridges that you cross over to get into the main part of the downtown, which is where we ended up. It seemed like very busy, and busy with like a lot of local life.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that, but it was a very hot day and a long walk. The bridges in particular, there's a lot of rotaries and a lot of traffic, and the cars come first. The pedestrians, you better pick your spot and pray and go quickly. Something we noticed in a few of the ports, but I think it stood out to me the most here, was there's a lot of old colonial style buildings which are now abandoned or in disrepair, graffiti on them. So it's really interesting to see sort of the history of those buildings, and they've been there for a long time, but they haven't been kept up and no one's using them anymore.
And it's unfortunate, but we know not every city can afford to maintain those buildings.
Our next stop was in Maceió in Brazil, and in this case we did get a complimentary shuttle because we were not able to walk again from the port to the city. So we were able to do our own walking tour from the market once the shuttle dropped us off. But mostly these were fairly quiet streets. We were able to get away from any crowds pretty quickly, and there was some interesting street art along these walls as well, which were fun to discover as we walked through some of the streets. It didn't seem highly active, like not a lot of restaurants and bars that we would have thought about going into.
It wasn't one of my favorite ports. It was nice. We got to see some things, but it just didn't seem like we could explore that much in the vicinity. Like everything seemed to be pretty far. Next on the list was Salvador da Bahia. And the cool thing was that when we arrived, there was music playing.
Once we did get off the ship and make it into town, it's just a pretty quick walk to get to that town center where it's the coast, and you can take pictures with the city sign that's always there, or look at some of the shops, or go into the city market. We also saw a recycled bottle Christmas tree here.
So cool, yeah.
And from the beach here along the coast, you can take an elevator, which actually goes to one of the historic neighborhoods. That's definitely the recommended way of getting there, though we didn't do that.
We always like to walk, so at no point did we think, oh, maybe we shouldn't be walking. We're going up the street, and a couple locals told us not to go that way and to put our phones away. So we found a different way to go up.
I am glad that we did walk, because it was a sort of interesting experience where the immediate area off the cruise ship is fully protected, and there's armed guards and stuff. There's police presence. Everyone's expecting the tourists to be there. And then they mostly go up the elevator into this neighborhood, which has, again, a very supportive tourist environment. Well, when we walked through the residential area, you really notice the difference stepping out of those sort of protected zones.
When we did get up there was a lot of touristy things happening, which I didn't love because it was it was a lot.
Yeah, I think it feels overwhelming, especially for us.
Yeah, like it was beautiful to see the buildings, but I think it's just such a contrast that it was very hard for me to enjoy it.
You go to the sort of overlooks that look down onto the water, and you can see the cruise ship, and you can see sort of the other residential neighborhoods. There's just such an outrageous contrast between the protected heritage area that you're in, or that other tourist locations that you might visit, and all of the residential neighborhoods.
Because we had done the walk up, we're like, okay, let's take this elevator that everyone talked about. But it's a cash only elevator, and we did not have cash. They didn't take cards. So I asked the person that was working there, which way can we walk then? He was like, no, don't walk down, take the elevator. I was like, I don't have cash. I can't take the elevator. So after a while, he gave us the money so we can take the elevator down, because he didn't want us walking down.
The last port of call on the journey to Rio was Bucios. This was probably our favorite stop. It was a tender that we had to take. It's a very cute sort of resort town, which is easily walkable, has a lot of nice shops and nice restaurants and nice bars, a lot of open dining or outdoor bar situations that you can tell it's a very lively atmosphere during certain times of year.
Yeah. And Nate said that we took a tender. For those of you that are like me, that are not cruise professionals, that basically means that the boat stopped in the middle of the ocean, the cruise ship, and then you take a boat from the cruise ship in the middle of the ocean. It is cool. This is my second time that I did a tender, and I like it.
What did you think about the town?
Oh, the town was cool. Saw a lot of bars that were closed, unfortunately, when we were there. We were there too early. But I could definitely see a lot of night bar hopping there. After all those ports, we finally arrived to Rio. And this port was not my favorite.
Disembarking was tough. You have to get your luggage scanned, you go through customs, you have your passport out, you have all your luggage and your bags and your passport. But then there's nowhere for you to really collect yourself. You get dumped off out into the hot sun right in front of the gate where everyone's shouting for you to get into a taxi. One of the things that we're really glad that we did was take a full day tour organized through our hotel. And doing a guided tour is not something that we usually sign up for, but in Rio in particular, where we just didn't know where everything was and it's all spread out. So doing everything on one bus tour organized through the hotel was just really convenient. And it worked out really well for us.
We were able to go up and see the statue. That was really beautiful. The Christ statue. We also went to the stairs, the famous stairs. And at each stop, you're given enough time to sort of explore on your own.
Yeah, and they had the cable car that we did as well.
Sugarloaf Mountain.
And Sugarloaf Mountain. And all of the tickets for those things were also included in the one-time payment that we made to go on the tour.
We stayed in the Copacabana/Ipanema border, so we were kind of close to both sections, and we walked around both, and there's a lot to do. So if you're definitely taking a cruise in or out of Rio, give yourself enough time to explore so that you can see the different parts. Things are very spread out, that it's a much bigger city than I had realized.
One thing I noticed about these ports was that as we got further from Lisbon, I liked the ports kind of less and less, and then as we crossed the Atlantic, they got better and better as we got closer to Rio. Another thing that we noticed about many of these ports that made it difficult for us to enjoy was that we really didn't find that we could get a local experience. The wealth gap is unfortunately very large in many of these countries or cities that we stopped at. So that makes it difficult for us to enjoy. When you're doing a transatlantic, you have to stop just to refill supplies. So some of the stops that we made, there could have been just for restocking on the cruise ship itself.
But I'm so glad we did it. It was our first transatlantic cruise, maybe not our last. I would try it again. Thank you for watching. Please check out our other videos and do subscribe. It helps support our channel. And if you want to know more of our sort of local travel experiences that we're having, you can follow us on Instagram at Unlocked Vistas. And thanks again.
Thank you.
If you're taking a cruise and are curious as to what ports you're going to visit, this video is for you. Just a cruise anywhere.
Yeah, we're the cruise coordinator. If you want to know what ports you're taking, come talk to us. We'll tell you.
Who's the woman? The Bridget?
Hmm?
The Bridget statue. The Boop statue.
Who?
Buzios. That's where the Bridget lady statue was.
Okay, what about it?
Who's the Bridget lady? Let's tell
I don't know. You didn't put it in the notes. How am I supposed to?
I can't remember. Bridget Bardot.
Oh, Bridget Bardot. Buzios. No, you did it. You don't cut that out because you did it. You're like, the lady with the